I absolutely love watching Hayley O's series, testing all of my eyeshadow palettes, and for multiple reasons, I've decided to do the same. So I noticed in my big makeup declutter in December, I didn't really know a lot of my palettes, and I was kind of making declutter decisions based off nothing, really. If I liked the color story, if they swatched well. There really wasn't much in-depth knowledge about a lot of my eyeshadow palettes, and when you have a lot of eyeshadow palettes, unfortunately that does happen quite a lot. So today is my part one. I am splitting this up into multiple parts, and part one is my drugstore palettes. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 palettes to share with you today. So if you're excited about this series, definitely like and subscribe because I upload 7 videos a week, a hell of a lot of videos here on my channel. I normally rock bright, fun, colourful makeup, but today I'm zoning it down a little bit. I went to the office today, so we've got to be a little bit more, neutral, a little bit more blending in, But normally I love blue, I love project panning, I love talking about makeup in all senses of the word. So if that sounds like a good time to you, stick around. And without further ado, let's jump into it. So I do have an Excel spreadsheet next to me here with all of my notes. So if you see me look to the side, I'm referencing. So before I jump into the video, I'm going to tell you the sections that are coming live. So obviously this video is going to be drugstore. I have one video coming live on Colourpop, so all of my Colourpop palettes. Then I have an indie section, so all my indie brands will then be reviewed in another video. This is obviously drugstore. Then I have high-end palettes as well. So there's going to be 4 videos in this series. I don't know when the next one's going to come live. It's just when I get time, So I do have a system in place. I've given all of these palettes either a green, an orange, or a red. And we're starting off pretty bad. It's a red palette. This is my Revolution Lion King Jungle Princess palette. It's so stunning, and I know the only reason that I keep this palette is because I love The Lion King. The Lion King has such a huge, special place in my heart. I have Oliver here. He's a little lion teddy. The Lion King is my favourite film of all time, and if it wasn't The Lion King, this would have been gone years ago. It makes me so sad because the colour story is nice. It's a really nice spring colour story, but the quality in this, not good. So what have I written? I only keep this palette for nostalgia and visual colour story. Yeah, visual colour story is beautiful. I really, really do like this. It's a nice change from my kind of style. If I wanted to change it up, this chartreuse, I will say, these 2 matte greens, the quality is great. The others, not there. So the quality of this palette is very subpar. Yep. All the shimmers, bar this blue, are like this really dense satin, not very much payoff. Like, look at that. I just swatched that. It's very Revolution. It's very Revolution on a budget, It's not great. This blue, however, I don't know what is different. It's very piecey. It is quite nice. Like, the shine on it, I've swatched these in the most strange way, but the shine on this blue is really, really nice compared to the greens. And this, I've got to swatch this purple. This lavender matte. Okay, yeah, we're going to swatch it. Nice. The quality just isn't there for me. And I'm really upset about it. I'm really upset about it. So yeah, I've put the lavender matte is non-existent when put on the eyes, along with most of the shimmers. The blue shimmer is lovely. The green mattes are nice too. I don't understand the dramatic quality change in this one palette. This blue, this chartreuse, this green, lovely. Like so nice. The rest of the shades, abysmal. Abysmal. Why is there such a dramatic quality change in this palette? I don't understand it. I really don't. If it wasn't for The Lion King, it would be gone. It really would. I'm so upset with this palette. Okay, next is the second palette from this collection that I picked up, and it is the Circle of Life palette. So this one has Scar on the front of it. And this is what the colour story looks like inside. Very me. This is more me than the last palette. I have rated this a green palette. And in my notes, the first thing I've put is, I'm confused as to how this palette can be so good, yet the Jungle Princess is so bad. And they're from the same collection. This palette is really lovely. There are no real dud shades in here. There's no shades that I put on the eye and think, where is it? All of them are really nicely pigmented and they are still quite dense. That's the thing. I'm not expecting miracles from this palette because it's Revolution, you know? But these shimmers are nice. I wouldn't pay £30 for them, but they're impactful. They're there compared to these. Like, worlds apart. Worlds apart. I always do this. I start swatching in videos and then forget to get like makeup wipes, so bear with. I've said before, I could probably pan this palette to completion. I really, really like it. So green palette all the way. What else have I put? The visual colour story is perfect for me and the quality of these shades is nice. It's not out of this world, it's Revolution, but I would be happy to wear this palette and like the looks that it gave me. 100%. I do. I like this palette. It's definitely me. And I'm baffled with the quality difference from the same collection. I've put, of course, nostalgia is creeping its head up and possibly giving this palette a higher ranking here. But overall, I think it's a nice palette. I think it's nice. It's a green palette. If it wasn't for the nostalgia, it would probably be an amber palette. But I do like this. I really do like this. Okay, next we're going to talk about Beauty Bay. Now, I wasn't sure whether to put Beauty Bay in the indie palette section or in the drugstore palette section. However, it just bulks up this video a little bit. I do have a lot of other indie palettes, so I thought, you know what, it's a drugstore price point. I'll put them in here. So first, Book of Magic. Is anyone surprised it's a green palette? I love this palette so much. You can tell there are so many pans in here. It is just straight up my alley. And this, it has my heart. It really has my heart. So what have I said? The matte formula and the colour selection, out of this world. Out of this world. Absolutely perfect. Everything has something to blend out the other shades. There's no random shade in here that you don't really know how to use it or how to blend it out. Everything has a nice blend selection. This palette is thought out so nicely and I love that. I've put the shimmers have two formulas and this is the one issue I have with this palette. One of the formulas is quite a dry shimmery formula, which I absolutely love. And the other formula is this super mushy, creamy formula that just creases quite badly. If you have oily eyelids, be careful. Obviously, you can't get this palette anymore, so I don't really know why I'm telling you this, but if you have this palette, be careful with the more shimmer, putty-like shimmers, but the shimmers like Charmed, that's like a true powder shimmer, so stunning, so beautiful, you can see that there, absolutely gorgeous. The putty shimmers are Moonlight, Potion, Spell, Crystal, and Stardust, so the majority of them are this putty formula. But I like them. I can get them to work really, really well for me. And I do love this palette. This was my Project Level Up Level 5 palette, and I did get a little bit burnt out with it, but that's just because I had to hit 5 pans and I had to use every shade 5 times. So that's a lot for any palette. So I did end up rolling this out early. I did hit my 5 pans, but I didn't hit the 5 uses in every shade. But I still love this palette. I really, really do. Sometimes you just need a little bit of a break, even from really, really good things. I have put for a little bit of a dig. I think there needs to be a wider shade range between the shimmers. The shimmers are all quite dark, apart from Alchemy. That's something I've noticed with this palette, but I don't know. Let me know down below. All right, next, my second Beauty Bay palette, the Wilderness palette. I did have the Sunset Horizons, but I did end up decluttering it. Beautiful. Look at this. Beautiful. Right up my street. It reminds me of the Melt Muerte palette if you get rid of these 2 rows, and that is a palette that I was like really wanting for so long, but it's been discontinued, and to be honest, so is this. The shimmer formula has improved in this palette. There aren't as many of those really, really creasy shades, shimmer shades in this, which I really appreciate. I really, really like. They've got this kind of shimmer formula down where it's not too creamy and wet, but but it's also not a dry powder formula. It's just the perfect in between. It really doesn't crease too bad on me. I do have very, very oily eyelids, so if a shimmer has the opportunity to crease, it will. I love this palette so much. I absolutely love Fossil, which is such a surprise for me. I am such a color girl, but Fossil is insane. This was also in a Project Level Up. It was my Project Level 3 palette, and I love this so much. Green palette all the way. I put the mattes are so pigmented. The color story is an unexpected love for me. Reminds me of Melt Muerte. The shades Raw and Heat are extremely disappointing. This is something that I realized. These two red shades, not good. I'm swatching. It's just not got much of anything to it. It's very, very similar to one of the Revolution shades. Let me swatch that next to it. If anything, the Revolution up top is better, which is not good. Okay, they are the only two shades in that palette that I really would not want to use. I don't like using them. Yeah, no. And that is a shame because I love blue and red together, but not with this palette. Overall, green palette, love. Then I have my newest Beauty Bay palette, which is the Reckless Romance palette. And again, this is a green palette. I did do a whole review of this palette. If you are interested, I'll link it up in the cards. I think it is still available as you are watching this. So I've always said on my channel, I don't like pink eyeshadow, but this is something a little bit different. I do love cool tones. I love cool tones. You can probably tell today, I love my cool toned eyeshadows. A lot of this is very cool tone. There are a few really warm toned shades. So Front Row, Affair, Rebel are pretty warm leaning. But other than that, it's very cool and very smoky. Now, I've learned I don't like warm tone pinks. However, cool tone pinks I can wear quite nicely. These super warm tone, girly girl, Barbie pinks, no, I'm not that girl. I'm not a fan of those. But these smokier pinks, I love. Oh my God, I never thought I'd say that. This is giving, and me and Ali said this is giving the Modern Renaissance's evil twin. You know, it's smokier, it's a lot darker, it's a lot grungier. And the Modern Renaissance has been my Pan That palette, so it's a nice replacement for that without the shades that I don't necessarily like to pan. So what have I said? The least me color story, but I still adore this palette. The smokiness pulls me in every time, even though the palette is mostly pink. The shade Girlfriend is slightly too mushy. Again, this is one of their, and it's such a shame because it is my favorite shade in the whole palette, but this is one of those Beauty Bay super mushy. I mean, oh, look at that. Look at that. But I have to be so careful whenever I do use this shade because very mushy, very creasy, but how can I not love that? It is so beautiful. These greys, up my alley, absolutely love it. I would wear these every day. These are my everyday shades, love. They're not grey. This is something I had an issue with the Beauty Bay smoky palettes that just came out. It's almost like they've got a palette and then just put a grey filter on it. I don't like greys. These have a little bit of taupe in them, which I like. I don't like grey, like grayscale, no brown in them at all. I do like these more taupey greys, and that is, they're just beautiful. They're just beautiful. And I've put at the end of this little review, it makes me excited to play with this more. I am excited to play with this. It's a newer palette in my collection. Green palette all the way. Beauty Bay quality is just so nice. Like, amazing. And for the price, oh. All right, so they are all the Beauty Bay palettes that I have to talk about. The next palette is the NYX Vintage Jean Baby palette. And this, of course, is a green palette. This color story is beautiful. And I know a few of you guys have bought this palette because of me as well. I will say everything in this video, as always, will be linked down below, as well as everything that I'm wearing on my face. So if you see something and you really like it, I will leave it linked down below for you. Okay, what have I said about this? Formula, 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10, and better than a lot of high-end palettes. This formula, I'm mainly thinking about the Natasha Denona Trio Chrome palette. We'll get to that in the high-end palette video. But anyway, this is such good quality. The quality of these shades is so good. And I know NYX is more of an expensive drugstore brand. I really like this. I do have a few color issues with this though, which I will get into. So but the mattes are super blendable. The shimmers are piecey, but in a good way, like a really nice textural pieciness. And however, I feel like there are a few shades missing from this palette. There's no deep brown matte, which is interesting. The deepest brown is this kind of mid-tone shade, and there's no light brown shimmer. We've got a whole brown section, no deep brown matte, no light or even mid-tone brown shimmer, which I would have thought would be a priority, but no. And there is also no light blue shimmer, which I again thought was a little bit strange. However, for some reason we have 2 silver shimmers. I personally would replace some shades in this palette with other shades for my personal preference, but again, that is just me. I can make it work. I do like this palette overall. There are just a few shades that I would like in it for my personal preference. The quality of this palette is out of this world. A green palette all the way. Okay, finally, the last palette in this video, and I've rated this an amber palette, and this is the SheGlam Chromosome palette. First of all, the packaging. It is so scraped up. It is ridiculous. I know that SheGlam aren't renowned, is that the right word? They're not known for being the best quality eyeshadow in the world, and this packaging proves it. There's also no clasp, so it can just open and close. There's no clasp at all. And I also don't like how you can see the pans glued in the back of this palette. I would have made this sticker bigger to cover that, but anyway. The actual quality of this palette is really nice though. I love this color story. It very much reminds me of the Subculture palette from ABH, which is now discontinued. The shimmer quality is stunning. However, I have said, I find that some of these shades are quite difficult to blend, specifically this dark brown shade. This dark brown doesn't really want to move on the eye. It wants to stay where it is. And that is something that I don't particularly like. I like to blend everything out with about 7 million other mattes. This doesn't want to play ball. I'm very disappointed with the quantity of eyeshadow in this palette as well. Again, it's going to be a SheGlam thing. It's going to be a money saving thing for them. But you can see how shallow this pan is. And I find that quite crazy. There is 4.8 grams in this whole palette. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 shades. Which I find quite mad. I really do. However, how often do we finish eyeshadows? Am I gonna give that a negative point because of that? It's so hard to finish eyeshadows. I don't know. But if this was a pan that palette, it probably would be done by like June. So yeah, this is the first episode of testing all my eyeshadow palettes. It's definitely been a ride. I do a lot of eyeshadow project pans, so it is sometimes really difficult to find the time to test these, but I actually really do like the thought of this video. I don't want to go into another declutter not knowing my collection. I don't want to sit there and go, I don't know what to get rid of, what to keep, because I don't know I have this palette. So this is a really good time for me to do this, and a time for me to really understand my collection before another declutter series. So this is it for this video. If you did enjoy it, like and subscribe. If you're looking forward to the next episode of this, definitely let me know down below. I'm pretty sure my next one will be indie brands, because I've already done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 palettes in that selection. So definitely stick around for me to test all my indie brand palettes. If you're excited, let me know. And with that being said, this is where I'm going to love you and leave you guys. Have an incredible day, and I will see you tomorrow for a brand new video. Bye bye!